Hi guys, tonight we begin in the winter of 874, inside a smoky, crowded longhouse on the coast of Norway. No glorious horned helmets, no kings feasting in golden halls, just sore backs, frozen toes, and a roof that sags under the weight of a truly unforgiving amount of snow. The Viking Age wasn't always epic. For most it was exhausting. And honestly, it smelled like damp wool, unwashed bodies, and the lingering ghost of smoked fish that had seen better days. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy boring history for sleep. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from across the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on your fan for a soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The world outside is a canvas of white and grey, a place where the sun is a half-forgotten rumour. But in here, in the long dark hall, it is a world of shadows and breath. You feel the grit of soot on your teeth. You can taste the salt in the air. By spring you'll reek of rancid fish, sleep next to a goat, and maybe share a bed with someone you didn't expect. This isn't a story of glorious conquest. This is a story of endurance, and it begins with you. You're not a Jarl's son. You have no inheritance waiting for you, no songs sung of your glorious birth. You are a consequence, a loose thread in the great tapestry. Your parents were either too poor to feed another mouth or too dead to care, left behind on some distant shore after a raid went sour. Perhaps you were born on a ship, your first cries swallowed by the howl of the wind and the groan of timber. Your earliest memories are not of a mother's lullaby, but of the rhythmic creak of oars and the cold, wet slap of sea spray on your face. You learned early that a quiet mouth and a busy pair of hands were your best hope for a share of the stew, and that complaining was a luxury item you couldn't afford. You were fostered, passed from one tired hand to another, a burden shared grudgingly among distant kin. Your home, this longhouse, is a microcosm of the Norse world. The Jarl and his family occupy the raised platform at the centre, closest to the warmth of the fire. You and the others, the thralls, the landless, the forgotten, live at the far ends, where the cold seeps through the walls like a malevolent spirit. Here, the livestock are your neighbours. You sleep on a bed of straw near the goats and the sheep, their warm, musky scent a strange comfort against the biting cold. Their soft bleating and shuffling in the dark are as familiar to you as your own heartbeat. You're so close that you can feel the goat's breath on your cheek when it shifts in its sleep, a warm, grassy puff in the frigid air. The winter is a long, slow siege. For months, the sun is a shy visitor, barely grazing the horizon for a few hours and casting the world in a perpetual haunting blue twilight before plunging it back into darkness. The elders call it skamdegi, the short days. It does more than chill your bones. It seeps into your mind, weighing down your thoughts until they move as slowly as the frozen river. You've seen the hunger madness they whisper about. When the food stores run low and the darkness presses in, people start seeing things. Shimmering figures in the snow, whispers on the wind that sound like names. You once saw a man, gaunt and wild-eyed, argue for an hour with the snowdrift he swore was his dead brother. No one stopped him. Wasting energy was a sin, and frankly, the snowdrift was putting up a better argument. Food is not a pleasure, it is a calculation. Last year, when the blizzards came early and the livestock began to perish, the meals thinned to a grim broth. The settlement in Greenland, they say, survived a winter on soup made from boiled seagulls. You can imagine the taste. Oily, fishy, and thin. The taste of pure desperation with a feather or two for texture. You learned the hard geography of a hungry haul. The closer you are to the Jarl, the more meat in your bowl. Down here at the far end, you're lucky to get the gristle and the broth, and you are grateful for it. Gratitude is a shield against the creeping madness of the long dark, but a shield can only take so many blows before it splinters. There is no school for surviving this. There are no classrooms, no neatly written scrolls of instruction. Your training is the world itself, and its lessons are brutal, efficient, and permanent. The curriculum is written in scars and frostbite, and there are no holidays. You learn by watching, by listening to the half-mumbled warnings of the old-timers, and by making mistakes that nearly kill you. An elder, his face a roadmap of hard winters and his left ear a shriveled nub of purple skin, grabs your arm one morning as you step outside. His grip is surprisingly strong. "Never lick an icicle, boy," he rasps, his breath a white cloud in the frigid air. "The frost spirits are hungry, and they'll take your tongue for a snack." He says it with a grim finality that tells you this is not a myth. This is a memory, and likely an embarrassing story he's had to live with for 50 years. You learn that warmth is a currency more valuable than silver. You learn to read the sky, to feel the shift in the wind that signals a coming storm. You learn that snow is not just snow. There is the light, powdery snow that hides treacherous ice, and the heavy, wet snow that can crush a roof, and you, beneath it. Your first real lesson in what it means to be a provider for the clan is a bloody one. You're sent with 2 older boys to slaughter a sheep. The cold is so intense it feels like a physical blow, a pressure against your lungs. The sheep, its wool thick with ice, trembles not from fear but from the cold. As the older boy draws his knife, the only sound is the wind and the animal's panicked breathing. The gush of blood is shockingly hot, steaming in the night air, a vibrant, impossible red against the stark white snow. Your job is to help skin it before the carcass freezes solid. Your fingers, already numb, burn with an agonizing fire as you work the blade. The warmth of the fresh hide feels both profane and life-giving. You get blood on your face and it freezes to your cheek in sticky, dark flakes. You do not wipe it away. This is your diploma. There are rituals too, tests of will that border on madness. The sagas speak of warriors in the Flatty Jarbuk who, to prove their worthiness, would swear their winter oaths barefoot in the snow. You've seen it done. A young man, desperate to join the Jarl's warband, stands before the longhouse, his feet raw and red on the frozen ground. He recites his lineage and his vow, his voice shaking but unbroken, while the steam rises from his skin. It is a piece of theatre, but the pain is real. The searing cold is a physical scream that travels from the soles of his feet up his spine. The risk of losing toes is real. It is a declaration that you're willing to sacrifice a piece of yourself for the community, that your own comfort means less than your honour. You haven't taken that oath. You're not sure if it's because you lack the courage or possess the common sense. The line between the two is often blurry in the long dark. A day in the longhouse is an assault on the senses. You wake not to sunlight, but to the sound of someone else's coughing, a wet, rattling sound that seems to echo in the smoky air. The atmosphere is thick with the smell of wood smoke, sleeping bodies, damp wool, and the ever-present ammonia-sharp tang of the livestock pen at the end of the hall. Privacy is a concept for kings and ghosts. Here, you're never truly alone. You can hear the soft snores, the rustle of straw bedding, the low murmuring of a couple under the firs a few feet away, their hurried, clumsy intimacy, a brief, desperate spark against the cold. You avert your gaze, pretending to be asleep, but you can feel their tension, their desire to be somewhere, anywhere else. Hygiene is a luxury, and one that is rarely afforded. If you are lucky, there is a steam lodge visit once a month, a chance to sweat the filth from your pores in a dark, sweltering hut. The rest of the time, you simply accumulate layers of grime. Your hair is slick with natural oils and fish grease, a perfect home for lice. Archaeological digs have found Viking-era combs with fossilized lice eggs still clinging to the teeth, a tiny, disgusting testament to the constant, itchy reality. You spend long, boring hours delousing your tunic, a small, satisfying crackle accompanying each kill. Everyone has them. Complaining about it would be like complaining about breathing. But the food is where survival becomes truly strange. You learn to eat things that would make a starving wolf pause. There is hackal, fermented shark, buried in the ground for months to rot away its natural toxins. The smell hits you first, a wave of ammonia and decay so potent it makes your eyes water. The texture is gelatinous and chewy. It is a food you conquer, not enjoy. Then there is the skaya, a kind of yogurt that has been fermenting in a goatskin bag for months. It's fizzy on the tongue, intensely sour, with a faint hairy aftertaste of its container. And then there are the social tests. An honoured guest arrives, and the Jarl calls for a feast. You are past a delicacy, a boiled sheep's eyeball. It stares up at you from the wooden bowl, cloudy and vacant. To refuse is a grave insult. All eyes are on you. You pop it into your mouth. There's a slight resistance, then a gush of warm, gelatinous fluid. You swallow it down, trying to keep your face neutral, a performance of polite appreciation that fools no one, but satisfies the requirements of custom. Life is lived in close quarters, and so are its embarrassments. You watch a young man try to woo the blacksmith's daughter. He's composed a poem for her. He stands up near the fire, clears his throat, and begins to recite his clumsy verses about her eyes being brighter than forge fire. He gets halfway through before he trips over a sleeping dog, sending a nearby pot of stew sloshing onto the lap of the girl's father. The hall erupts in laughter. The boy's face burns a brighter red than any forge. That story will be told and retold all winter. Humiliation, you learn, is a potent form of entertainment when there's little else to do. It's a reminder to watch your step, in every sense of the word. The sagas and skalds sing of heroes with gleaming axes and impenetrable shields. Your reality is far less polished. The pop culture of a distant future might picture you as a titan clad in shining mail, laughing in the face of the cold. The truth is you're a walking, talking pile of damp wool and unmet expectations. Your most important tool is your knife. It's not a fearsome weapon of war, it's a simple iron blade, likely dulled to the sharpness of a butter knife from constant use. You use it to mend your leather shoes, to whittle a peg, to gut a fish, to pick the dirt from under your nails. It is an extension of your hand. Your axe, too, serves double duty. It splits the firewood that keeps you from freezing, but it also hangs by the door, a grim deterrent to anyone who might mistake your poverty for weakness. It's a tool for butchering a pig one day, and, if the gods are cruel, a neighbour the next. If you're lucky enough to own a shield, it's not the brightly painted disc of legend. It's made of simple wooden planks, warped from the damp, the leather rim cracked and peeling. Its job is less to stop a sword, and more to provide a small portable wall against the wind during a hunt. Your clothing is your first and last line of defence. It is layers of wool and leather, greasy to the touch and heavy with the accumulated sweat, soot and fish oil of a long season. It is never truly dry. You sleep in most of what you wear, the clammy fabric a constant companion. The idea of clean underclothes is a fantasy. Your tunic is stiff with sweat and grime, and the smell clings to you even after a rare bath. At night, you crawl into your bed, which is not a bed at all, but a sack of straw laid on a wooden bench or directly on the dirt floor. Over time, the straw becomes matted with your hair, with moisture, with mould. It's a cosy home for fleas and mice. You often wake with the telltale itch of flea bites, or hear the scuttling of mice searching for dropped crumbs just inches from your ear. They are just other members of the household, and the light, the iconic image of a roaring hearth, is only half the story. The central fire is for the Jarl's family. In your corner of the hall, the darkness is fought back with small, pathetic fish oil lamps. A bit of moss serves as a wick in a hollowed-out stone filled with rendered fish or seal fat. The light they produce is flickering, weak, and casts dancing, monstrous shadows on the walls. But its greatest product is the smell. A thick, rancid, fishy stench that mixes with the smoke from the central fire pit, which, lacking a proper chimney, hangs low in the air. You are breathing this all day, all night. It coats your lungs, your clothes, your hair. It does a better job of making you cough than making you see. This is the gear of survival. Dull, greasy, smelly, and just barely good enough. Your battles are not fought on a glorious field against a shield wall. They are quiet, desperate struggles waged daily against a more relentless foe, winter itself. Your primary duty is to protect the one thing more precious than any hoard of silver, the food store. You are assigned to guard it. This is not a guard against thieves. Stealing food from the community is unthinkable, a death sentence, but against nature. You patrol the small, dark storeroom, your breath pluming in the cold. You check the barrels of salted fish, tapping them to make sure the brine hasn't leaked. You inspect the sacks of grain for the telltale signs of mice, and you fight a constant war against mould, which creeps like a fuzzy green death over the precious wheels of cheese and the last loaves of hard, dark bread. You scrape it off with your knife, knowing you're only delaying the inevitable. Another duty is hunting on the sea ice. Armed with a simple spear, you venture out onto the frozen fjord to hunt for seals. Every step is a gamble. The ice groans and shifts beneath you. You learn to read its colours, to know the dangerous dark patches that signal thin ice. To fall in is certain death. The shock of the sub-zero water would steal your breath. Your muscles would lock up in seconds, and the current would pull you under the ice before you could even scream. You've seen it happen. A man vanishes, and all that's left is a dark, churning hole in the ice, and a silence that is louder than any shout. The seal you manage to kill is a victory. Its blubber a source of fuel for the lamps, its meat a welcome change from dried fish, its fat a strange and useful tool. Some warriors, before a night raid or a dangerous journey, would smear themselves with a thick layer of seal fat. It was said to provide a layer of warmth, but it also made you slippery, harder for an enemy to grab in a fight. You've never done it, but you can imagine the feeling, cold, greasy, and smelling powerfully of the sea. During the midwinter festival of Yol, the battles turn inward. For a few days the hall is filled with forced merriment. The ale flows freely. Old tensions, buried for months under a blanket of communal survival, resurface with drunken courage. Arguments erupt over a stolen tool, a past insult, a perceived slight. You watch as two cousins, their faces flushed with ale, begin to shove one another. It escalates quickly. Knives are drawn. These sagas are full of these stories, and they are not exaggerations. They tell of Yol feasts ending with bodies being dragged out into the snow. You once saw the aftermath of such a brawl. A man, killed in the heat of the moment, was propped upright in a snowbank to freeze solid, his hand still stiffly clutching the hilt of his knife, a grim, frozen monument to a drunken rage. Your duty in these moments is to stay out of it, to make yourself small, to not draw the attention of men whose tempers are fueled by cheap ale and the crushing boredom of the endless night. In this tight-knit, high-stakes world, your reputation is as vital as your ability to hunt. Failure is not a private affair. It is a public judgment with brutal consequences. If you fail in your duty to provide, if your hunt is unsuccessful or you're seen as lazy, your family eats last. You see the silent accusation in their eyes as they chew their meagre portions. It is a shame that gnaws at you more than any hunger. If you are accused of something worse, like hoarding food, the punishment is swift. The Jarl holds a small, informal court, a thing around the fire. Accusations are made. There is no defense attorney. If you are found guilty, you may be exiled, pushed out of the longhouse, into the blizzard, with no food, no shelter. It is not an execution, but it is a death sentence all the same. No one survives the winter wilderness alone. You have nightmares of it. The heavy wooden door of the longhouse thudding shut behind you, the laughter and warmth fading, leaving you alone with the screaming wind. Sometimes the same fate befalls the very sick or the very old. When it becomes clear they will not recover, they are sometimes placed on a sled with a small offering of food and left outside for the gods to take. It is seen as a mercy, a way to preserve resources for those who might yet live. But as you watch the sled disappear into the swirling snow, you can only see the cold, hard arithmetic of survival. Gossip is the sharpest weapon in the hall. Reputations are carved in ice, and remembered longer than any good deed. A lie can travel from one end of the fjord to the other before the truth has found its boots. The sagas are filled with mocking songs and nicknames for those who fail. There's a man in the hall they call Stumpy behind his back. He lost 2 fingers to frostbite years ago after falling asleep drunk outside. The shame of it follows him like a shadow, and reputations can be frozen by more than just failure. One night, under the heavy furs, emboldened by the darkness and the shared, desperate need for human connection, you steal a kiss from a girl you desire. It's not romantic. It's a fumbling, awkward collision of cold noses and chapped lips, your breath smelling of fermented fish. And you're not as quiet as you thought. Her brother, sleeping nearby, hears the muffled sounds. The next day the story is all over the longhouse. It's not a scandal, just a source of immense amusement. The girl avoids your gaze, her face burning with humiliation. The other young men smirk at you. Your clumsy, failed seduction is now a running joke, a trivial event that has cemented your reputation as awkward and foolish for the entire season. In the long dark, a moment of shame can last for months. The last of the embers in the central fire pit glow with a soft orange pulse, like a sleeping giant's heart. The wind outside has died down to a low moan. You've made it through another night, another small victory in a long, silent war. You lie buried in damp furs, listening to the low, rhythmic breathing of those still alive around you, a fragile chorus of survival. You've seen the bottom of the world, the place where life is stripped down to its raw essentials. warmth, food, and the beat of your own heart in the suffocating quiet. Spring will come, the ice will break, the sun will return, and the world will be green again. But the winter will always live in your bones. You will carry its chill, its darkness, and its lessons with you forever. Your hands might be crooked from the cold. Your lungs might ache with the memory of 1,000 smoky nights, but you endured. In this frozen hall, with the smell of smoke in your hair and salt on your lips, you endure. And for tonight, that is enough. Now close your eyes and drift. Somewhere a wax tablet is cooling. Somewhere your name still echoes. It is the late winter of 1374 in a bustling market town somewhere in the heart of medieval Europe. Outside, the streets are little more than churned mud and thawing horse manure. But in here, the world is thick with heat. The warmth hits you first. A damp, heavy blanket pressing against your face, carrying with it the distinct aroma of, well, a lot of things, none of them particularly delicate. It's a pungent cocktail of wood smoke clinging to damp wool, the metallic tang of something vaguely medicinal simmering nearby, and underneath it all, a low hum of something undeniably organic and not entirely pleasant. You try to pinpoint the source, your eyes still adjusting to the hazy, steam-filled gloom, and then you feel it. A slickness under your bare feet. Something yielding slightly, and a discarded apple core nudges against your toe. How did you find yourself here, amidst this fragrant chaos? Perhaps the relentless itch beneath your winter-worn woolens finally drove you to seek a respite, a chance to scrub away the accumulated grime of months spent huddled by a smoky hearth. Or maybe news had reached your ears of a new batch of surprisingly palatable ale being served within these very walls, a rumour often enough to loosen a few reluctant coins from even the tightest of purses. It could even be the whispered promise of other diversions, the kind that flourish in the anonymity afforded by steam and shared nudity, that tugged at your curiosity, or perhaps more honestly your desperation. Whatever the initial lure, the reality now settling around you is a far cry from the idealized visions of Romanesque relaxation you might have once entertained. This isn't a pristine piscina with mosaic floors and fragrant oils. This is a working man's wash, a place where necessity and perhaps a little bit of communal indulgence collide in a haze of lukewarm water and questionable hygiene. The process itself is a study in pragmatic discomfort. There are no plush towels awaiting you, no individual basins filled with fresh water. Instead, you're directed towards a row of roughly hewn wooden tubs, some already occupied by a motley assortment of your fellow townsfolk. The water within varies in hue from a cloudy grey to a disturbingly opaque brown, depending, you surmise, on the bathing habits of the previous occupants and the last time the establishment's perpetually harried staff bothered to replenish it. You eye a relatively clear-looking tub in the corner, only to notice a small clump of something vaguely resembling hair floating near the surface. You reconsider. Perhaps sharing a larger pool-like enclosure with a few others wouldn't be so bad after all. Misery, as they say, loves company, especially when that company is equally intent on dislodging several layers of ingrained filth. Once submerged, and after a brief, awkward dance of limbs trying to avoid unnecessary contact with your neighbours, the initial warmth does offer a fleeting moment of bliss. It seeps into your chilled bones, easing the aches and stiffness accumulated from days of toil. But this fleeting comfort is soon replaced by a more persistent awareness of your surroundings. The man to your left coughs with surprising force, sending a spray of moisture and something else you'd rather not contemplate into the air. The woman across from you appears to be meticulously examining a blemish on her arm, occasionally flicking something small and dark into the murky depths. And the air, despite the steam, is thick with the low murmur of conversations, punctuated by the occasional hearty guffaw or the unmistakable sound of someone clearing their throat with impressive volume. You realise, with the dawning sense of grim amusement, that personal space is a luxury rarely afforded in a medieval bathhouse. The training you've received in the art of medieval bathing has been largely observational, gleaned from hurried glimpses during previous visits, or the often unhelpful pronouncements of older relatives. There are no detailed instructions, no neatly printed guides to optimal hygiene. You've learned that the general aim is to get wet, scrub a bit, and then get out before the water reaches a consistency that could support small aquatic life. If you're fortunate, the bathhouse might employ an attendant or two, burly individuals whose primary duties seem to involve stoking the furnace, occasionally ladling in more hot water with a distinct lack of precision, and generally ensuring that the level of unruly behaviour doesn't escalate into outright brawling. Asking for specific assistance, such as adjusting the water temperature in your particular corner of the communal pool, is generally met with a grunt and a dismissive wave. You're largely left to your own devices, armed with whatever rough cloth or handful of bran you've brought with you, to tackle the task of degriming yourself. The wealthier patrons, you notice with a twinge of envy, often arrive accompanied by servants who handle the more unpleasant aspects of the bathing ritual. These fortunate souls recline in their private tubs, while their attendants diligently scrub their backs, apply scented oils, and ensure a steady supply of lukewarm refreshment. They emerge from the steam looking faintly pink and smelling vaguely of lavender, a stark contrast to the flushed and slightly prune-like appearance of the general populace. You even spot one particularly affluent individual with what appears to be a genuine sponge, a rare and coveted luxury that draws more than a few envious glances. For the rest of you, however, the bathing experience is a far more communal and considerably less refined affair. You share water, you share air, thick with the exhalations of your neighbours, and you certainly share the faint but persistent feeling that you're not quite as clean as you'd hoped to be. The daily reality of a medieval bathhouse is a sensory assault, a far cry from the serene depictions often found in tapestries or illuminated manuscripts. The smell alone is a complex tapestry, woven from numerous less than pleasant threads. The dominant note is undoubtedly that of unwashed bodies, a musky, faintly sour aroma that speaks volumes about the infrequency of personal hygiene. This is overlaid with the sharper tang of sweat, the earthy scent of damp wood from the tubs and benches, and the lingering aroma of whatever herbs the attendants have tossed into the heating cauldrons in a vague attempt to improve the overall ambience. Today, you detect a hint of rosemary and something vaguely medicinal, perhaps pennyroyal, but these botanical notes are constantly battling the more robust and persistent odours of humanity. The heat is oppressive, clinging to your skin and making every breath feel thick and heavy. Steam rises in swirling clouds, obscuring faces and creating an almost dreamlike, yet decidedly unromantic atmosphere. You find yourself constantly wiping moisture from your brow, the droplets mingling with the faint film of something that seems to coat every surface. Sounds are equally pervasive. The low murmur of conversations blends with the splash of water, the occasional cough or sneeze, and the rhythmic sloshing as attendants add more water to the various tubs. Now and then, a burst of laughter erupts from one corner, often followed by a wave of curious glances. You even hear the unmistakable sound of someone spitting discreetly into the water nearby, a reminder that certain social niceties are often suspended in this environment of shared vulnerability. And then there's the matter of nudity. While the initial awkwardness might fade, the constant awareness of exposed flesh, your own and that of your neighbours, remains. Some individuals seem entirely unbothered, engaging in boisterous conversations or leisurely grooming. Others are more self-conscious, subtly trying to cover themselves or avoid direct eye contact. Children, of course, are entirely uninhibited, splashing and darting about with carefree abandon, occasionally bumping into you with surprising force. It's a strange paradox, a place of intended cleansing that simultaneously throws you into an intimate and often uncomfortable proximity with your fellow human beings, flaws and all. You even witness a brief, clumsy exchange between a young man and woman in a dimly lit corner, a fleeting moment of illicit intimacy that underscores the bathhouse's reputation as a place where more than just dirt is shed. Your tools and gear for this endeavour are rudimentary at best. You've brought a coarse linen cloth, its texture somewhere between burlap and sandpaper, which will serve as your primary scrubbing implement. You also manage to procure a small bar of lye soap, its scent harsh and vaguely industrial, a far cry from the perfume concoctions enjoyed by the wealthy. For scenting, you tucked a few sprigs of dried mint into your satchel, hoping to add a slightly more palatable aroma to your immediate vicinity. The tub itself is a roughly constructed wooden affair, the planks held together with what appears to be a generous application of tar or pitch. It's functional, if not particularly comfortable, and you eye the dark ring around the inside with a healthy dose of suspicion. Heating is a constant concern. Attendants periodically shovel hot coals into a large cauldron situated nearby, then laboriously ladle the heated water into the various tubs and pools. The temperature fluctuates wildly, from scaldingly hot in one moment to tepidly lukewarm the next. There's little in the way of precise temperature control, and you quickly learn to test the water with extreme caution before fully immersing yourself. Scenting, when it occurs at all, involves tossing bundles of herbs directly into the water or steeping them in porous cloth bags. The effect is often fleeting, the botanical aromas quickly overwhelmed by the more dominant human effluvia. Luxury items are conspicuously absent. You spot no sponges, no delicate oils, no finely woven drying cloths among your fellow bathers. Most, like you, will make do with whatever rough fabric they've brought, or perhaps even resort to simply air drying in the somewhat less humid antechamber. Drinking vessels are occasionally seen, crude wooden cups or even shared ceramic mugs, often filled with watered-down wine or weak ale. These are precariously balanced on the edge of the tubs, leading to the occasional spill and a collective groan of mild annoyance. The overall impression is one of practicality over pampering, a functional approach to hygiene that prioritizes getting reasonably clean over any semblance of spa-like indulgence. The job in action begins with the somewhat undignified act of disrobing in the communal changing area, a dimly lit space with a few rough benches and an overwhelming smell of damp fabric and unwashed feet. You carefully fold your clothes, trying to keep them separate from the damp piles accumulating around you. The floor beneath your bare feet is surprisingly warm in places, likely due to the proximity of the ovens used for heating the water, but also disconcertingly slick with spilled water and other unidentifiable substances. Choosing a tub is a delicate negotiation. The private tubs, if available, are often more expensive and tend to be occupied by the wealthier patrons. You opt for a spot in one of the larger communal pools, carefully assessing the current occupants before settling in. you manage to find a relatively empty corner, though your knees inevitably brush against the leg of a rather large and hairy individual immersed nearby. You offer a polite nod, which is met with a grunt and a sideways glance. Once submerged, the steam envelopes you, blurring the edges of your vision and muffling the surrounding sounds. Snippets of conversations drift through the haze, complaints about taxes, rumours of war, the latest village gossip. You hear the distinct sound of someone hawking and spitting into the water a few feet away, and you try your best to ignore it. Food is occasionally brought into the bathhouse, chunks of bread, wedges of cheese, even the occasional bowl of stew precariously balanced on a bather's knee. The aroma of warm meat mingling with the steam is oddly unsettling. Someone calls out for more hot water, and you hear the hiss and splash as an attendant unceremoniously dumps a ladleful into the pool, sending a wave of tepid, slightly greasy water in your direction. In a more upscale establishment, you might expect an attendant to offer a back scrub or pour scented water over your head. Here, you're largely left to your own devices, occasionally using your rough cloth to scrub at particularly stubborn patches of grime. From a nearby tub, a burst of raucous laughter erupts, followed by some indistinct splashing. You choose not to inquire. The consequences of a day spent in a medieval bathhouse are rarely limited to mere cleanliness. Socially, these establishments are complex spaces. On one hand, they act as great equalizers. For a brief period, stripped bare of their finery and their social signifiers, a wealthy merchant might find himself soaking alongside a humble blacksmith or a minor clergyman. Here, in the shared steam and lukewarm water, a temporary sense of camaraderie can develop, fueled by shared discomfort and the occasional cup of watered-down ale. Gossip flows freely, alliances are forged, and business deals are often struck amidst the rising vapours. You overhear snippets of conversations that would likely never occur in the more formal settings of the marketplace or the church. However, the bathhouse also carries a significant social cost, particularly as the later Middle Ages saw an increasing suspicion of public nudity and mixed-gender bathing. Priests frequently preached against the perceived moral dangers of these establishments, decrying them as dens of iniquity and opportunities for licentious behaviour. Rumours of clandestine meetings, illicit affairs, and even the spread of unspeakable diseases often clung to the local bathhouse like the dampness in the air. Your reputation could indeed be affected by which bathhouse you frequented and with whom you were seen socialising within its steamy confines. Some establishments were considered relatively respectable, patronised by families and more upstanding members of the community. Others, however, had a more dubious reputation, whispered to be little more than thinly veiled brothels, where the promise of a warm bath was secondary to more carnal pursuits. The immediate physical consequences could also be unpredictable. You might emerge feeling relaxed and invigorated, your skin tingling from the scrubbing and the heat, or you could find yourself afflicted with a rather unpleasant rash, a testament to the less than pristine water and the close proximity to numerous other bodies. In times of plague and other epidemics, public bathhouses were often viewed with particular suspicion, and sometimes rightly so, as ideal environments for the rapid transmission of disease. A seemingly innocent dip in the communal pool could, in a matter of days, lead to a debilitating fever or worse. Even seemingly minor missteps could have social repercussions. Slipping on a wet plank and landing ungracefully in a tub, spilling your drink over a fellow bather, or accidentally mistaking someone else's rough drying cloth for your own could lead to embarrassment, awkward apologies, or even minor altercations. misjudging the unspoken social cues, staring too intently, lingering too long in conversation with someone of a higher social standing, or making an ill-timed joke could result in social ostracization, or even more tangible consequences. Success in the medieval bathhouse is a relative term. If you manage to leave feeling reasonably clean, slightly warmer than when you arrived, and without having contracted any obvious ailments or suffered any major social faux pas, you could probably consider your visit a qualified success. The faint scent of wood smoke, and perhaps a lingering hint of whatever herbs were used might even cling to your skin, a subtle reminder of your communal ablutions. Failure, on the other hand, can manifest in a variety of unpleasant ways. You might slip and fall, injuring yourself on the hard wooden floor or the edge of a tub. You could accidentally swallow a mouthful of the murky bath water, leading to immediate and unpleasant consequences. You might discover, too late, that the itchy welts appearing on your skin are not merely a reaction to the heat, or, in a truly unfortunate turn of events, you might wake the next day with a raging fever and a collection of ominous spots, realizing that your quest for cleanliness had inadvertently led to a far more serious affliction. But even in the best-case scenario, a day at the medieval bathhouse leaves you with a lingering sense of something other. It's the shared experience, the enforced intimacy, the undeniable evidence of humanity in its most unvarnished form. You are never truly alone in that fragrant, steamy haze. Those fleeting conversations, the accidental brushes of skin, the shared sighs of discomfort, they were, in their own peculiar way, a form of human connection. And tonight, as you lie tucked beneath your blankets, perhaps that sense of warm, slightly damp closeness will settle over you, the faint echo of the bathhouse's communal murmur lulling you towards a fitful and hopefully fever-free rest. It is a damp morning in the autumn of 1886, and London is still half asleep beneath a pall of yellow-grey fog. The gas lamps burn like tired eyes, and the streets, slick with last night's drizzle, glisten faintly in the gloom. The handle of the broom is slick in your hands, not with rain, but with a fine, greasy mist that coats everything in this city, a concoction of coal smoke, river damp, and atomized horse manure. You shift your weight from one foot to the other, the worn leather of your boots making a soft sucking sound in the thick black paste that covers the cobblestones. A hansom cab rattles past far too close, and you instinctively lean back, bracing for the spray. A wave of liquid filth, the colour and consistency of a badly made gravy, arcs through the air and spatters against the wall behind you. A near miss. You don't even flinch. Flinching is a waste of energy. You can already feel a cold dampness seeping through a hole near the toe of your left boot. A familiar and unwelcome sensation. The air you breathe is a physical thing, something to be chewed before it's swallowed. It tastes of soot and sulphur, with a faint underlying sweetness of rot from the direction of the river. This is your corner, a small patch of urban terrain at the intersection of two moderately busy streets, a place you defend with a tired glare and the proprietary way you lean on your worn-out broom. From here, you can see the grand gaslit windows of a haberdashery, the stern pillared entrance to a solicitor's office, and the endless churning river of humanity that flows between them. This is London. Not the London of grand novels and elegant parlours, but the London of the street. The London that you can smell from 5 miles away on a bad day. A city that gets under your fingernails and into your lungs and never, ever truly leaves you. It's a relentless, grinding machine, and you are one of its million tiny moving parts, sweeping away the muck it produces, trying not to be crushed under its wheels. How you got here is a story as common as the coughs you hear from every tenement window. You weren't born to this. You remember fields. You have a vague, dreamlike memory of green grass and air that didn't make your eyes water. But that life ended when the landlord raised the rent and the harvest failed in the same season. Your family, like thousands of others, was pulled into the city's massive gravitational orbit, lured by the promise of work in the factories and the docks. The promise, you soon learned, was a lie, or rather, a half-truth. There was work, but there was no life to go with it. Your father found a job at a tannery, a place that smelled so foul it made the street seem pleasant, and the chemicals ate away at his lungs until his cough turned from a nuisance to a death rattle. Your mother followed him a year later, worn down by piecework sewing she did by candlelight in your single shared room. Now, there is only you and your sister Lily. You live on the 4th floor of a tenement in 7 Dials, a room so small that you can touch both walls if you stretch your arms out wide. The air in the room is permanently damp, with a constellation of black mould blooming in the corner above Lily's cot. Her cough is the first sound you hear in the morning and the last sound you hear at night. A thin, dry rustle like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It's a sound that twists something sharp and cold in your gut. So you come here. Every day, from the grey light of dawn until the gas lamps begin to hiss to life, you stand on this corner. You're a crossing sweeper. Your job is to clear a path through the ankle-deep mire of horse dung, mud and refuse, so that ladies in their fine dresses and gentlemen in their polished boots can cross the street without soiling themselves. For this service you might receive a farthing, or if you're lucky, a halfpenny. Most of the time you receive nothing but a dismissive glance. There is no formal training for this life, only a brutal and efficient education provided by the city itself. You learn to navigate the fog, a thick, yellow pea super that can descend in minutes, turning the world into a bewildering maze of muffled sounds and looming shapes. You learn to listen for the jingle of a horse's harness and the rumble of iron-shod wheels long before you can see them. You learned the delicate, intricate dance of crossing a busy street, a skill as complex as any courtly minuet, involving feints and dodges and sudden sprints between thundering drays and speeding carriages. Failure in this dance doesn't result in a bruised ego. It results in a broken bone or worse. You learn to read faces, to distinguish between the pinched face of a clerk who has no money to spare and the soft, abstracted face of a wealthy woman who might be moved by a look of profound misery. You learn to project an aura of pathetic harmlessness, to look hungry but not threatening, pitiful but not proud. And you learned about territory. Your corner is your livelihood, and it is always under threat. Today, the threat has a name, Finn. He's a few years older than you, with a brutish square face and eyes that are always narrowed in calculation. He works the next street over, but you can see him now, leaning against a lamppost, watching you. His own crossing is less profitable, and you know he covets yours. He's tried to shoulder you out before, with shoves and low-voiced threats. So far you've held your ground, mostly by being too stubbornly pathetic to be worth the effort of a real fight. But his presence today puts a knot in your stomach. It means you can't relax for a second. Every penny you earn is a victory, and every potential customer who passes you by feels like a personal failure, a failure that will echo in the sound of Lily's coughing tonight. The city around you is a symphony of stench and sound. The dominant note is always coal smoke, a constant acrid perfume that stings your eyes and coats the back of your throat. Beneath that is the rich organic reek of horse manure, so pervasive that you barely notice it anymore, the same way a fish doesn't notice water. But other smells drift by on the damp air, the sharp tang of fish guts from a nearby seller's cart, the sweet, cloying smell of stale beer from a public house door swinging open, the sour whiff of human waste from its overflowing gutter, and the sounds are just as relentless. The constant grinding clatter of carriage wheels on stone, the rhythmic clop, clop, clop of countless hooves, the distant, mournful foghorns of barges on the Thames, and the cacophony of human voices, vendors crying their wares, children shouting, men arguing, and the ever-present chorus of coughing. You try to shut it out and focus on the work. Your broom is a pathetic tool, just a bundle of twigs bound tightly with twine, but you wield it with practiced efficiency. You sweep the thickest parts of the muck into a neat ridge along the curb, creating a narrow, semi-solid path for pedestrians. It's a Sisyphean task. No sooner have you cleared a patch than a horse will walk past and undo your work with a single, steaming deposit. It requires constant vigilance. Your boots are your most essential tool, but they are failing you. The leather is cracked, and the soles are thin. You've stuffed them with rags to try and keep the damp out, but you can feel the cold seeping in, a slow, creeping misery that starts in your toes and works its way up your legs. You see gentlemen in gleaming waterproof boots and feel a pang of envy so sharp it's almost painful. It's not the wealth you envy, not really, it's the dryness. A woman selling meat pies from a cart on the far corner catches your eye. The smell of hot pastry and savoury gravy makes your stomach clench with a hollow ache. You haven't eaten since yesterday morning, a piece of stale bread dipped in weak tea. The pie seller is doing good business, her voice a shrill cry of all loss, get your lovely meat pies. You wonder what kind of meat is in them. People say they use cats, or rats, or worse. But right now, the thought of hot food, any hot food, is so powerfully seductive, it's almost dizzying. You shake your head, trying to clear it. Focus. Finn is still watching you. And more importantly, a well-dressed couple is approaching your crossing. This is your chance. A real gentleman, tall and stern-faced, with a magnificent set of whiskers so grand they seem to have their own sense of purpose, as if they might detach and conduct business on their own. He has a top hat that gleams even in the dull light. On his arm is a lady, her face mostly hidden by a bonnet, but you can see the pristine hem of her silk dress, a deep emerald green. They are exactly the kind of people who might pay for a clean crossing. You immediately spring into action, your weariness forgotten. You sweep with a renewed vigour, your movements becoming a pantomime of diligence. You clear the path with a few quick, expert strokes, then stand to the side leaning on your broom, trying to look as deserving and pathetic as possible. You touch the brim of your tattered cap, a gesture of deference you've learned is essential. The gentleman's eyes flicker over you, a look of blank dismissal. He doesn't see you. He sees a piece of the city's filth that happens to be animate. But the lady, as she steps onto your freshly cleared path, gives you a brief, fleeting smile. It's a small thing, but it feels like the sun breaking through the fog. Your heart gives a hopeful leap. She is going to give you a penny. You're sure of it. It happens in an instant. A hansom cab, the driver perched high and oblivious, swings round the corner at a reckless speed. The gentleman shouts an oath. You react on pure instinct, stepping forward slightly, putting your own body between the lady and the street, a pathetic, grimy shield. A tidal wave of black, stinking road soup erupts from under the cab's wheels. It flies through the air in a graceful, horrifying arc. Most of it misses the couple, thanks to your slight movement, but it hits you square in the chest. A cold, shocking impact, followed by a stench so foul it makes you gag. At least you won't need a bath for a week, you think, with a flicker of bitter humour. Your shirt is soaked through, and you can feel the foul liquid running down your legs, seeping into your already damp boots. The gentleman is bellowing at the cab driver, who just shrugs and cracks his whip, disappearing into the fog. The lady gives a little cry of distress, clutching the gentleman's arm. And in that moment of chaos, as she reaches out to steady herself, you see it. A flash of silver. Something small and bright falls from her reticule, the small beaded purse dangling from her wrist. It falls with a soft plop, landing directly in the middle of the very muck you just swept aside. It's a locket, small and oval-shaped, attached to a delicate silver chain. It lies there, half submerged in the filth, gleaming. No one else sees it. The gentleman is too busy fuming, his face a thunderous shade of purple. The lady is too busy brushing imaginary specks from her dress. Finn, across the street, is laughing at your sodden state. Only you have seen it. Your heart begins to pound, a frantic, hammering rhythm against your ribs. The couple is already moving on, the gentleman steering the lady away from the scene of the crime, his voice a low rumble of indignation. This city is a disgrace. Filthy animals, the lot of them. You're left standing there, dripping, stinking, and utterly frozen. The locket winks at you from the mud. It's a star fallen into the sewer. Your mind, usually consumed with thoughts of pennies and bread, suddenly ignites with 1,000 conflicting possibilities. You could just pick it up, pocket it. It's silver. Real silver. It would be worth... how much? More than you could make in a month of sweeping. Enough for a doctor for Lily. Enough for real medicine, not the cheap gin you sometimes buy to soothe her cough. Enough for meat pies every day for a week. Enough to fix your boots. The thought is so powerful, so intoxicating, it makes you feel light-headed. Who would know? They are gone. It's a gift from the city, a reward for the indignity you just suffered. But then you look at the locket again. It's small and elegant. It probably has pictures inside. It's something precious, something someone loves. You remember the lady's brief smile. It was kind. The thought of stealing from her leaves a sour taste in your mouth, a taste even fouler than the muck you're wearing. This is the dilemma, the central, agonizing question of your life, presented to you in a flash of silver. Do you become the thief the gentleman already assumes you are? Or do you try to be the person the lady's smile made you feel like for a fleeting second? You risk everything if you try to return it. A filthy street urchin running after a wealthy couple, holding a piece of their property. They'll assume you stole it. They'll call the police. You could end up in the workhouse or worse. Lily would be left alone. The fear is a physical thing, a cold knot tightening in your belly. But the image of her smile and the even more powerful image of your sister's pale, trusting face wars with that fear. You have to. You must. With a trembling hand, you reach down and pluck the locket from the filth. It's cold and slimy in your palm. You wipe it hastily on a relatively clean patch of your trousers, and without giving yourself another second to think, you begin to run. The aftermath of your decision is immediate and chaotic. You abandon your corner, your broom, your entire world, and sprint after the couple. Running in this city is a hazard in itself. The pavement is uneven, slick with a constant patina of grime. You dodge a slow-moving dray horse, its massive head swinging near your face, its breath misting in the cold air. You swerve around a group of chattering women, earning a sharp curse. Your sodden boots slap against the stone, your feet slipping and sliding, your soaked clothes clinging to you like a second icy skin. The gentleman's tall hat is your beacon, a black cylinder bobbing above the crowd 100 feet ahead. "Sir! Ma'am! Wait!" you shout, but your voice is thin, easily swallowed by the city's roar. You're out of breath, a sharp stitch burning in your side, but you push on, driven by a desperate, foolish hope. They're moving fast, about to turn a corner. You put on a final burst of speed, your lungs on fire. You skid around the corner, nearly colliding with a man carrying a stack of wooden crates. And there they are, standing on the pristine white steps of a large terraced house, the gentleman fumbling with a key. You stumble to a halt at the bottom of the steps, panting, a filthy, dripping mess looking up at their clean, orderly world. You are a creature from another reality, an invader from the gutter. The gentleman turns, his face a mask of fury and disgust as he sees you. What is it now? "Begone, you filthy creature! I'll have a constable on you," he barks, stepping in front of the lady protectively. Your courage falters. This is exactly what you feared. You're a thief in his eyes, nothing more. You can't speak, can only gasp for air. You hold out your trembling hand, palm up. The locket lies there, still smudged with dirt, but undeniably theirs. You dropped this, ma'am," you manage to choke out. The gentleman scoffs. "A likely story. Trying to pick her pocket, were you?" But the lady pushes past him. Her eyes widen as she sees the locket. "Oh, my locket!" she exclaims, her voice filled with a relief so profound it silences her companion. "My mother gave this to me. I thought it was gone forever." She looks from the locket in your hand to your face, her expression changing from alarm to a dawning understanding. She sees your soaked clothes, your heaving chest, your utterly terrified eyes. She sees that you ran. She reaches out not to take the locket, but to touch your arm. Her gloved hand is hesitant, as if she's not quite sure you're real or safe. "You brought it back," she says softly. The gentleman is silent now, watching this exchange with a look of stunned disbelief. The lady takes the locket, her fingers brushing yours. Her touch is warm, even through the fabric of her glove. She opens her reticule again, and this time she pulls out a coin. It's not a penny, or even a half-penny. It's a shilling, a bright, silver shilling. It's more money than you've held at one time in your entire life. She presses it into your palm. "Thank you," she says, her voice genuine. "Thank you, young man." The gentleman clears his throat. "Come, my dear," he says stiffly, his voice tight with disapproval. He unlocks the door and ushers her inside, casting one last withering glare in your direction. The heavy door clicks shut, leaving you alone on the clean steps, the world of warmth and wealth sealed off once more. You stand there for a long moment, the shilling feeling impossibly heavy, a small circle of heat in your cold, dirty hand. You have succeeded. You have failed. You're not a thief, but you're still, in their eyes, filth. You don't go back to your corner right away. You walk. The city seems different now, filtered through the strange, jarring experience. The shilling in your pocket is a secret sun, a private source of warmth. You walk past the pie seller and without hesitation you buy a pie. It's hot in your hands, the pastry flaky, the gravy rich. You don't care what kind of meat it is. For all you know, it's the final earthly remains of a particularly slow cat, but it's hot, and it's yours. You walk past a gin palace, the doors swinging open to release a wave of noise and cheap perfume. On an impulse, you go in and buy a small flask of gin, not for you, but for Lily. It's what the old women say helps a bad cough. It probably doesn't, but it feels like you're doing something. On your way toward the maze of streets that lead to your tenement, your path takes you past your abandoned corner, and you see him, Finn. He's taken over your spot, sweeping clumsily with his own thick broom, looking frustrated. He sees you approaching, and his face hardens into its usual sneer. He's expecting you to be defeated, to beg for your spot back. He's expecting a fight, or at least a miserable retreat. But you just look at him. The shilling is a solid weight in your pocket, a silent armour. The fear you usually feel when you see him is gone, replaced by a weary sort of indifference. You meet his glare, give a tiny, almost imperceptible nod, and keep walking. You can feel his confused, angry eyes on your back. For today at least, that corner doesn't matter. You've won a different prize. As you walk the final familiar streets towards Seven Dials, the fog begins to roll in thick from the river, swallowing the rooftops and muffling the sounds of the city into a low, indistinct murmur. You clutch the flask of gin and the remaining change in your pocket. You are a success. You have money for food, for medicine, for a moment of relief. But the gentleman's disgusted face is burned into your memory. You cross the street, and for a brief, terrifying moment you cross the invisible, uncrossable line between his world and yours. You proved your honesty, but in doing so, you only highlighted the chasm between you. The shilling is not a bridge. It's a reminder of the distance. You reach your tenement and climb the 4 flights of dark, rickety stairs, the smell of boiled cabbage and despair growing stronger with each floor. You open the door to your room. Lily's asleep on her cot, her small face pale in the gloom. Her cough rustles in her chest, even in sleep. You are home. You are safe. But as you stand there in the quiet, listening to the city's faint, relentless heartbeat through the thin walls, you understand something. The city gives, and the city takes. Today, it gave you a shilling, but it took a small piece of your hope, the naive belief that a good deed could make you clean in the eyes of those who only see the dirt. And as the fog presses against your single grimy window pane, you know that this city, in its vast, indifferent cruelty and its occasional startling moments of grace, will always be the master of your fate. It is the year 74 AD in the bustling heart of Rome, where the streets outside are loud with vendors' shouts and the clatter of iron-shod sandals on stone. But here, past the heavy doorway and into the echoing chamber, the world changes. The cold seeps into you instantly, not the bracing cold of a winter wind, but a deep penetrating chill that travels directly from the smooth marble bench into your bones. It's a cold that feels ancient, a cold that has lived in this stone for centuries. You shift your weight, the fabric of your tunic rustling against your skin, a sound that seems shockingly loud in the echoing space. A steady, gurgling sound of running water comes from beneath you. A constant liquid whisper that never ceases. You're not alone. To your left, perhaps 3 feet away, a man you don't know grunts softly, a sound of quiet effort. To your right, 2 more men are engaged in a low, conspiratorial conversation about shipping costs for Egyptian grain. Their voices bounce off the high, vaulted ceiling, mingling with the sound of the water and the distant, muffled roar of the city outside. No one looks at you, yet you feel intensely, uncomfortably visible. Your knees are practically touching the man's across from you. This is a public space, but the business being conducted here is profoundly, inescapably private. This is not where you wanted to be today. This is a detour, an unwelcome and urgent necessity. You are, or were, on an important errand for your patron, Senator Marcellus. You were striding through the forum, full of purpose, the leather pouch containing your wax tablet bumping reassuringly against your hip. But then a familiar, unwelcome clenching in your gut began. A mild discomfort at first, then a low rumble of warning, and finally a sudden, tyrannical demand that could not be ignored. You had two choices: risk a public and deeply humiliating disaster on the steps of the Temple of Saturn, or duck into the nearest public convenience. So here you are, seated on a long communal bench of cool, unforgiving marble in the Foraker of Agrippa, shoulder to shoulder with your fellow citizens, all of you engaged in the great levelling act of nature. How you got here, to this specific moment of discomfort, is a story of ambition and anatomy. You are Lucius, a junior scribe in the household of a man who is climbing the slippery ladder of Roman politics. Senator Marcellus is not one of the old great names, but he is clever and he is ruthless. Your job is to be his shadow, his memory, his pen. You follow him through the sweltering, noisy halls of the Curia. You stand behind him in the cool, shaded gardens of his villa, and you scratch his thoughts, his schemes, and his scathing observations onto wax with a sharp stylus. Just this morning, you were in his study, a room that smelled of cedarwood and old papyrus, taking notes as he dictated a private assessment of his political rivals. He paced the mosaic floor, his voice a low, dangerous murmur, and you worked frantically to keep up. He spoke of Senator Flavius's suspected bribes, of Praetor Quintus's unfortunate gambling debts, and of a certain Vestal virgin whose nocturnal activities were, he claimed, far from virginal. It was a tablet full of dynamite, a document that, if it fell into the wrong hands, could ruin men, or at least ruin you for having written it down. When he was finished, Marcellus had waved you away. "Take that to the copyist in the Subura," he'd ordered. "I want 3 copies by nightfall. And Lucius," he'd added, fixing you with his sharp, intelligent eyes, "be discreet. Discreet." The word had echoed in your head as you'd clutched the pouch. The wax tablet inside feeling both powerful and radioactive. You would walk through the forum, your posture straight, trying to look like a man on important business, not like a terrified young scribe carrying a pouch full of character assassinations. And that's when your treacherous insides had betrayed you. You'd scanned the forum, your eyes wide with panic, and seen the modest arched entrance to the public latrine. It was an oasis of last resort. You told yourself it would be quick, in and out. No one would notice you. Discretion, after all, was key. The concept of training for a visit to the latrine is absurd, yet you find yourself relying on a set of unwritten, unspoken rules you've absorbed through observation. This is a social space, and like any Roman social space, it has its own intricate etiquette. You know, for instance, to manage your clothing carefully. A toga is a nightmare in a place like this. Its voluminous folds a constant hazard, always threatening to dip into the running water channel at your feet or, God's forbid, trail across the damp, grimy floor. Your simple tunic is easier, but you still hitch it up carefully, bunching the fabric around your waist. You watch how the other men do it, a silent education in public hygiene. You see a man a few seats down finish his business. He reaches for a nearby object that you've been trying very hard not to think about, the Tessorium. It is, in essence, a sea sponge attached to the end of a wooden stick. He dips it into the small channel of clean running water at his feet, rinses it with a few practiced swirls, and then proceeds to use it. You try to look away, focusing on a piece of graffiti carved into the plaster wall opposite you. It's a crude drawing of a gladiator with an absurdly large sword, standing over a fallen opponent with an inscription below it. As a scribe, you can't help but judge the lettering. It's atrocious, clearly the work of an amateur, and he's misspelled Victor. Some triumphs are smaller than others, you suppose. When the man is done, he rinses the sponge stick again in the same channel and places it back into a shared bucket of what you hope is very strong vinegar or salt water. This communal tool, this xylospongium, is a marvel of Roman engineering and a testament to a concept of sharing that makes your skin crawl. The man to your left, who'd been quiet until now, lets out a long, weary sigh that seems to carry all the weight of the empire. Gods, the heat today, he says to no one in particular. Even the shade in the forum feels like an oven. You feel obligated to respond. It is oppressive, you murmur, nodding slightly. He grunts in agreement, and the two of you lapse back into a shared, companionable silence. It's a small, mundane exchange, a reminder that this place, for all its strangeness, is just another part of the city's daily life. The daily reality of the latrine is a full-body experience. The sounds are a constant, gentle backdrop. The sloshing and gurgling of the water in the channels, the soft slap of sandals on the wet floor, the low hum of conversation. An occasional cough or a heartfelt groan will briefly punctuate the noise, but for the most part it's a place of surprising calm. The smells, however, are another matter. The primary scent is one of damp, earthy stone and the sharp, acidic tang of the vinegar used for the sponges. But beneath that, there is the unmistakable low-tide aroma of human waste, a smell that the running water never quite manages to eliminate completely. It's not overpowering, but it is pervasive. It clings to the damp air and, with a sinking feeling that it will probably cling to your clothes when you leave. The temperature is cool, the stone walls and constant water providing a welcome respite from the oppressive heat of the Roman street. In winter, this same coolness would be a misery. You see a stray cat, thin and wary, dart into the room, sniff disdainfully at the water channel, and disappear through an archway. No one pays it any mind. This is a place of transit for cats and for men. You try to settle in, to breathe through your mouth, to become an anonymous part of the scene. You just need a few minutes of peace, a few minutes of quiet anonymity to do what you came here to do, and then you can be on your way. Discretion. And then the god of cruel ironies decides to pay you a personal visit. The group of men enters with a confidence that announces their importance before you even see their faces. There are 3 of them, all well dressed in fine linen, their conversation loud and self-assured, and leading them, his silver-bordered toga glinting in the dim light, is Senator Flavius, your master's chief political rival, the man whose rumoured bribes are detailed in exquisite, damning detail on the wax tablet currently nestled in the leather pouch on your lap. Your blood turns to ice water. Of all the latrines in Rome on this specific day at this specific hour, he is here. You shrink down, trying to make yourself smaller, hoping he won't see you, won't recognize you. But the latrine is not that large, and there are only a few empty seats left. Flavius's eyes scan the row, and you see a flicker of recognition, followed by a slow, predatory smile. He walks directly towards you. He passes one empty seat, then another, and with a theatrical sigh, he settles onto the marble bench in the spot directly to your right. You are trapped. Your heart is a frantic bird beating against your ribs. You stare straight ahead, your knuckles white where you grip your bunched-up tunic. Perhaps he will ignore you. Perhaps he will grant you the mercy of silence. Lucius, isn't it? Flavius's voice is smooth as oiled marble and just as cold. Marcellus's little shadow. I trust your master is in good health? You can feel the eyes of his two companions on you. You can feel the eyes of the man across from you. Your quiet, anonymous corner of the latrine has just become a public stage, and you are its unwilling star. He is well, Senator, you manage to choke out, your voice sounding thin and weak. Good, good, Flavius says, his tone dripping with false sincerity. He leans back, the picture of relaxation. He works so hard, that man, always scribbling, always scheming. Tell me, Lucius, what grand new plan for the glory of Rome is he hatching today? I do hope it involves something more interesting than another tedious debate about grain subsidies. This is a nightmare. He is talking to you. He is asking you about your master's business here in a public toilet while you are both indisposed. Every rule of etiquette, every instinct for self-preservation is screaming at you to end this conversation, but he is a senator. You are a scribe. You cannot ignore him. You are sweating now, a cold, clammy sweat that has nothing to do with the day's heat. Your hands are slick. I would not know, Senator, you lie, your voice trembling slightly. I am just a humble copyist. Flavius chuckles, a low, unpleasant sound. Oh, I am sure. A humble, deaf, and blind copyist. Marcellus is lucky to have such a discreet servant. He puts a subtle, mocking emphasis on the word. He knows, or he is guessing. It doesn't matter. The conversation is a razor blade, and he is pressing it against your throat. You fumble with the pouch on your lap, a nervous, meaningless gesture. You need to get out of here. And then it happens. In your sweaty, panicked state, your fingers slip. The leather pouch, weighted by the tablet inside, slides from your lap. You lunge for it, a clumsy, desperate grab, but you only manage to knock it. It doesn't fall to the floor in front of you. Instead, it flips through the air in a perfect, horrifying arc and lands with a soft plop not in the opening beneath you, but in the keyhole-shaped opening of the seat next to you, the seat that Senator Flavius is currently occupying. For a split second it rests there on the marble edge, and then, with a final sickening wobble, it tumbles through the hole and disappears into the channel of rushing water below. There is a splash, a small, insignificant sound that signals the complete and utter destruction of your world. It is gone. The tablet, the notes, the secrets, all of it, swept away into the dark, gurgling guts of the Cloaca Maxima, the great sewer of Rome. The immediate aftermath is a profound and terrifying silence. The world seems to slow down. The murmur of conversation around you fades to nothing. The only sound is the steady, indifferent gurgle of the water that is even now carrying your career out to the Tiber. You are frozen, staring at the empty marble hole beside you, a perfect monument to your failure. Then, slowly, Flavius leans forward. He peers down into the opening beneath him as if inspecting a curious piece of plumbing. He straightens up, and a single, perfectly sculpted eyebrow rises on his forehead. He turns his head and looks at you. He is not angry. He is not surprised. He is smiling. It is a slow, cruel, deeply satisfied smile. He saw the pouch. He saw your panic. He understands exactly what just happened. His companions are looking at you, their expressions a mixture of confusion and dawning amusement. The grain merchants across from you are openly staring now, their business forgotten. You've become the afternoon's entertainment. Your face is burning with a heat so intense, you feel like you might spontaneously combust. You wish the marble bench would crack open and swallow you whole. Flavius leans in close, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that is somehow more menacing than a shout. "A clumsy moment, Lucius," he murmurs, his breath smelling faintly of wine and garlic. One must be so careful with important documents. They have a tendency to disappear, just like reputations. He pats your shoulder, a gesture that is not one of comfort, but of ownership. "Don't worry, I won't tell a soul. It will be our little secret." The threat is unspoken, but crystal clear. He has you. He doesn't have the tablet, but he has something better. He has the story. The story of Senator Marcellus's terrified little scribe, so flustered by a simple question that he dropped his secret notes into the sewer. He can twist it however he likes. He can hint at what was on it. He can use it to mock you, to torment you, to undermine your master through you. You are no longer just a scribe. You are a liability, a walking, breathing joke. You have to finish. You have to stand up, manage your tunic, and walk out of this chamber of horrors. The final indignity awaits, the Tursorium. You reach for the communal sponge stick, your hand trembling. It feels slick and heavy. You dip it in the water, the same water Flavius and his friends have been using, and you clean yourself with a detached mechanical motion. Every second is an eternity. You rinse the sponge and place it back in the vinegar pot, the clatter of the wood against the ceramic echoing your shattered composure. You stand up, your legs unsteady. You pull your tunic down, trying to regain some shred of dignity. Flavius is still watching you, that same venomous smile playing on his lips. His companions are snickering. As you turn to leave, "A broken man," Flavius calls out, his voice ringing with false cheer. "Give my warmest regards to Marcellus." The chamber erupts in laughter. The walk back through the forum is no longer a blur of shame, but a series of sharp, painful tableaus. You pass the rostra, where great orators speak of honour and duty, and you feel like a fraud. You pass the Temple of Vesta, home to virgins of impeccable reputation, and you think of the secrets you had written now floating in filth. As you near the Curia, you look up at a grand statue of Veritas, the goddess of truth, her marble eyes staring blankly into the heavens. You feel a wave of bitter irony. The ideals of Rome are carved in pristine white stone for all to see. But the real truth of the city, the truth of power and politics, is a dirty, whispered thing, a secret exchanged over a sewer. The faint, foul scent of the latrine seems to cling to you, an invisible stain that you're sure everyone can smell. You have to go back to Marcellus's villa. You have to stand before him and tell him that you lost the tablet. How? What possible explanation can you give, other than the mortifying, unbelievable truth? You clutch at the empty leather pouch at your hip. It feels light and useless. You came to the latrine to find a moment of privacy, a brief escape from the public eye. Instead, you found the most public, most exposed moment of your entire life. You learned today that in Rome, there are no walls. Not really. A man's business, whether it's politics, commerce, or the most basic functions of his own body, is always on display. A reputation can be built over a lifetime in the Senate, and it can be utterly destroyed in a single clumsy moment on a marble bench. You are clean, technically, but you have never felt